Welcome to The Explainer. So, vaping. Is it a public health miracle, or is it a looming crisis? Today, we're going to dig into this very dilemma, and we're going to use a landmark 2024 report from the UK's Royal College of Physicians as our guide. This image really nails the whole debate, doesn't it? Is vaping a vital off-ramp from deadly cigarettes, or is it a brand new on-ramp to nicotine addiction, especially for a whole new generation? The truth, as you'll see, is a lot more complicated than a simple choice.
All right, to really wrap our heads around why vaping is even a thing in public health, we have to start with the problem it was actually designed to solve. And that is the absolutely staggering deadliness of old-school traditional cigarettes.
Okay, just let that number sink in for a second. 76,000. That is how many people in the UK die from smoking-related diseases every single year. It's this relentless, massive health crisis, and that number is precisely why the search for safer alternatives got so urgent.
And this quote, wow, it just lays the stakes out bare, doesn't it? This isn't some small risk. We're talking about a 2 in 3 chance of death for long-term smokers. With odds that devastating, you can see why health organizations were desperate for anything less harmful.
So, that desperate search led officials directly to e-cigarettes. And the UK especially has really leaned into vaping, not because they think it's harmless, but because they see it as a key tool in a public health strategy called harm reduction. The logic here is really pragmatic. It's an admission that quitting nicotine is incredibly difficult. So the thinking goes, if people can't or won't quit, let's at least get them to switch from the most dangerous delivery system out there, burning tobacco, to one that's significantly less dangerous.
Now, what's so interesting here is how this slide breaks down the why. See, the thing that does the most damage from smoking isn't actually the nicotine. It's the thousands of toxic chemicals like tar and carbon monoxide that are released when you literally set tobacco on fire. Vaping takes the fire out of the equation, and by doing that, users are exposed to what the report calls just a small fraction of the toxins. So not totally risk-free for sure, but a completely different level of risk.
And for smokers, this strategy seems to be working. The report estimates that e-cigarettes may have helped as many as 50,000 additional smokers in England successfully quit each year. That is a huge number of lives that are potentially saved, or at least extended.
But, and this is a huge but, here is where the story takes a sharp turn. A strategy designed to solve one massive problem has, well, it's accidentally created a whole new one. And it's one that's setting off alarm bells everywhere. Just look at this chart. Vaping among kids, we're talking 11 to 17-year-olds, has just surged, hitting 7.6% in 2023. And look at that timeline. The report is clear that most of this huge spike happened just since 2021. This isn't a slow creep, it's an explosion. So what's fueling this fire? Well, the data points to one main culprit: disposable vapes. They're cheap, they're brightly colored, they come in sweet flavors, and they are just so easy to get and use. That combination has made them unbelievably popular with young people, and it's driving this entire trend.
And this right here is the crucial contrast. While the overwhelming majority of adult vapers are using these things exactly as intended to quit or stay off cigarettes, it's this rise in use among young people who have never smoked that's the big unintended consequence. And it's one that now demands action.
So this creates an incredibly tricky problem for policymakers. How do you restrict access for kids without, cutting off a tool that could literally be saving adult smokers' lives? It is a genuine regulatory tightrope. The report suggests a pretty smart, multi-pronged approach, instead of just choosing one group over the other. The goal is to do two things at the same time: make vapes way less appealing to kids, while keeping them accessible and correctly framed for adult smokers who need them. And this approach breaks down into some really concrete ideas. We're talking about banning all the kid-friendly marketing, like cartoon characters, using taxes to make those cheap disposables less attractive, cracking down on shops that sell to kids illegally, and crucially, making sure adult smokers get accurate information on the real risks. Okay, finally, the report warns that we just can't ignore the elephant in the room, and that's the role of the very industry that created the smoking epidemic in the first place.
This is such a stark observation from the report. Think about it. For the tobacco industry, a truly successful harm reduction strategy, where everyone either quits nicotine or switches to a less harmful product, would mean the end of their most profitable product ever, the cigarette. Their business goals are fundamentally at odds with the public health goal.
And this is the report's direct warning. It argues that while new products are part of the solution, health policy has to be shielded from the influence of an industry that, let's be honest, still profits from selling deadly cigarettes while also claiming to be part of that same solution.
Which brings us all the way back to this essential question. There are no simple answers here. It is a complex, difficult balancing act between a proven tool that helps current smokers and the very real risk of getting a whole new generation hooked on nicotine. And that is the tightrope that public health officials are walking right now.